Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy Mega Meeple.
Greetings and welcome to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and games that bring them together. This is episode 65. And thank you so much for hitting that download button. And I'm assuming that if you download it, that you actually listen to it. So thank you for listening too. But if you are new here, if this is your first time with me, I want to welcome you to the Mega Meeple. Everybody is welcome at the Mega Meeple gaming table. There's always an empty chair just waiting with your name on it. So feel free to grab a Mountain Dew, chips and salsa and mac and cheese. We got some pizza coming in. So just pull up a chair and enjoy the game. If you haven't already, we have a website. Oddly enough, it's called the Mega Meeple. Funny how that stuff works. That's www.themegameeple.com. And there, all of our episodes stream there. So you could go all the way back to episode 1 or episode 000 and hear just how things sounded back then. We also have reviews, a little bit of news, but it's mostly news of games that I find interesting. And then, of course, you go to the social media page on the website. There are links to all the social media crap that I have out there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the usual suspects. And you can find the links right there. Feel free to like and subscribe and follow and share and all that happy stuff. You can also go to the Mega Meeple YouTube channel. I'm going to be sharing some news about that here in a few seconds. And if you haven't already, go to iTunes and put out some of that 5-star loving and give us a happy review. Really appreciate it. Goes a long way. And if you like what I'm doing here, and if you want to throw a little bit of change out of your little piggy bank there my way, that will help out with the hosting cost and web hosting and Libsyn fees and all that crap. You could go to either our Pod Pledge or Patreon page, and as a result, you get kind of little perks, little something, exclusive content, early release videos and episodes. You also have more of a privileged input on the content and things that I do here. And some monthly giveaways as well. So, it's you get a little something. You help me out, I help you out. That's the way it works. But if you're not able to financially help the show out, you could still support the show just by spreading the word. Like I said, subscribe. Go to my social media things like Facebook, Twitter, share, retweet, whatever. Just get the word out there. Because I am a one-man operation. I could only do so much. And if you're not able to do either one of those things, hey, I hope you have fun just listening. So there you go. We have a pretty cool episode. We have my special guest co-host is Gerald King III. Actually, it's, you're gonna, I was hopefully gonna splice these things together and fix it in the mix, as they say. But you're gonna hear two types of interviews with Gerald. The initial interview was recorded I'd say at least 2 months ago, I think, and then about 2 weeks ago, Gerald contacted me and said, "Hey, if that episode hasn't gone live yet, I got." He said he had a new Kickstarter coming out and a tour that's going to be happening here pretty soon. we got back on the Skype and recorded sort of like an addendum to his co-host spot. But in the 2 months that between the initial interview and then what we recorded late last week, he got a new microphone. And you could definitely hear that because the microphone that he used initially, he said it died shortly thereafter. And a friend of his sent him a good quality mic. And you could definitely tell the difference. And really, that just speaks to what we do here as, podcasters or even YouTube content creators or anybody who's creating media and putting it out there. We are not high-paid, priced professionals that's doing this stuff. A lot of us don't even have like professional training in broadcasting or media production or marketing or stuff like that. I mean, we're just a bunch of people that like the hobby, and we like to talk about it. And as we're doing this, we're constantly striving to do better and improve. And like I said, if you go back to listen to episode 000, or episode 1 even, I said way back then, I'm saying it now, this is a ever evolving show. It's always going to be changing. It's always going to be improving. It's always going to get better. And we certainly appreciate not only the new listeners, but also those of you who've been listening for a while, that you have come along and stuck around. So anyway, my special co-host is Gerald King III this episode. And my guest this episode is another content creator, Cathy Ford of Our Turn Podcast. And those of you new listeners or relatively new listeners may have seen me on the Dice Towers Board Game Breakfast on the Dice Towers YouTube channel. I actually want to give a shout out to Cathy Ford because she think about she may not know this. I mean, if she's listening to this episode, this is probably the very first time she hears this. She doesn't know this, but she's going to know this now. But it was actually Cathy Ford who planted the bug in my ear about even approaching Tom Vassell at the Dice Tower to ask about how do you go about being a contributor to the Dice Tower network or the video segments that they have. Well, what's the worst that's going to happen? He says no, whatever. It's like, okay, moving on. So I just want to thank Cathy Ford right now for just encouraging me, kind of nudging me over there to at least approach and contact Tom Vassell to ask him about contributing to the Dice Tower. If you haven't already, if you follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, you've heard about this at this point. But I don't think I've mentioned it here on the podcast. But I am having a game giveaway on my YouTube channel. And again, if you go to the website, www.themegameeple.com, go to the social media page, there is a link to the Mega Meeple YouTube channel. If you haven't already, go there and subscribe, and I will be giving a game giveaway to one of my subscribers. But here's the catch. Once I hit 100 subscribers, that's when I will do the giveaway. And I benefit from that as well. I mean, you benefit because you get an opportunity. You're in the entry running of winning a game. But it helps me out too because once I get to 100 subscribers, I could then get a custom URL on YouTube That's my my ulterior motive for having the subscriber drive. So anyway, that's enough of my jibber jabber. Let's get on to my conversation with my special guest co-host, Gerald King III, and then we'll move right into my interview with Cathy Ford of Our Turn podcast. Alrighty. Well, I mentioned a few episodes ago, I forget what episode it was. I think it was like 59, 58, somewhere in there, that we were going to be having a sort of a rotation of special guest co-hosts come on. And we have one of them with us right now. Gerald, how you doing, guy?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Tom? Do you prefer Tom or Thomas? I haven't asked you that yet.
Actually, it's Tom or Thomas is fine. That the odd thing is if you spell it out, Tom, it's THOM. So that's
so it doesn't actually say Tom at all.
No, it's Thom, the Thom or something. Actually, that's a weird story in itself. Back in high school. I found out that there was another Thomas Grogan in my graduating class. And,
oh, wow.
And so no relation. It was just out of the blue. And so that was sort of like my way of differentiating my papers and homework and stuff like that from the other Tom Grogan. I would spell it out Thomas. So I was like Thomas and he was just Tom, and that's how kind of and I just kind of kept it from there. So, but it was kind of funny because the other Tom Grogan was a bit of a troublemaker. So it seemed like it'd be so many times that he'd be called to the principal's office, but they'd be calling me. And it was like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? I didn't do anything. What did I do? And I go to the office, and they're like, no, we don't want you. We want the other Tom Grogan. And they have to hunt the other guy down. It's like, okay. Actually,
we want the bad Tom.
Yeah. In fact, my mom thought I was lying to her when I came home one day. Said, "Hey, Ma, there's another Tom Grogan," and she thought, okay,
she thought you were trying to make up an excuse for how you got in trouble.
Yeah, she was expecting a call from the school saying that I got in trouble and I was making up some BS excuse that there was a doppelganger or something or something.
Yeah, it's funny because my name is Gerald, but I'm actually the third. So all the other Geralds, I'm not Gerald to my family. I'm Jerry. Okay. Because my grandfather was Gerald. My father was just King. They would just call him by his last name, and then everyone called me Jerry. But my son, he's the fourth, and he gets to be Gerald again.
Oh wow! Okay. Yeah. How far down the line does that go as far as like Roman numerals after the name, where it just?
Oh, my son is the fourth, but I mean, I've never met anybody past the eighth. But back in the day,
yeah.
They'd go the 32nd.
Wow.
They just weren't very original. I guess I'm not very original either, though, so I got no room to talk.
Well, hey, yeah, hey, it's family pride. I think it's your.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, and I mean, it's like once you're to the third one, it's like, why stop now? We're already rolling.
Yeah. All right. Well, for people who don't know about you or haven't heard about you or anything like that, give us tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah.
Well, I organize events as Ultimate Team Up in Northeastern Ohio, and we got one in Pittsburgh right now, and we're working on going into a couple other places, just working with other game designers. But basically, I just work with game designers to throw events at board game cafes and stores and other places, random. We do a series of events at a coffee shop in Northeastern Ohio called the Nervous Dog. And I really just try to work with game designers and publishers to help them put their games out in front of people. And I've kind of become, I also do social media. So I do social media management. And so I've also become kind of a consultant. I just kind of help people as much as I can get a handle on what they should be doing in social media, especially in the beginning when you have absolutely no idea like what's going on with the whole social media thing.
Yeah.
And I make games and I design board games. I made we just kickstarted Flip and Fine's Diner. I designed games through Spontaneously Combustible Games out of Cleveland, Ohio.
All right.
And with Michael McFarlane and Todd Jacobison. And we just kickstarted Flip and Fine's Diner back in April, and that was my first game.
Sweet.
So that was really cool.
So how's it going? What's been the response to it so far?
Everybody I give all praise to the play testers because I spent, I really designed Flip and Fine's Diner because I started these events, if that makes sense. Like I started the events and I used to design video games like back in the day. We did some Quake mods and some other stuff, just hobby.
Yeah.
And at some point I stopped doing that. And then when I picked up board game design, I just wasn't really ready to call myself a board game designer. So I started doing the events and just trying to provide for the community at first. And I ended up designing Flip and Fine's Diner because sometimes I already had the idea, but sometimes there wouldn't be any game designers at the events to play test their games. So I had to make sure I had a game. So my game got to the table a lot, and the people who play tested it really made sure that it was a fun game because they liked coming to the events. So, that game really, the blade got sharpened on it nicely. So everybody who plays it enjoys it,
Cool.
So I'm always happy about that.
Oh yeah.
But I take no credit for how good it is.
I think a lot of that came from just the play testers fine tuning. The diamond in the rough, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. It's always really cool to see how much because playtesters, when you have really great playtesters, it's like you're working with them. You know what I mean? You almost feel like they're co-designers at some points. Yeah. You know what I mean? You almost want to give them that kind of credit because their input shapes the game, you know what I mean, so entirely sometimes. So It's really cool.
That's neat. That's neat. So how long was the game in development and stuff as far as play testing and ironing everything out?
We spent, it was an on and off process because life, you have your ups and downs. And then of course, I'm a flighty artist type, so I get distracted easily by shiny new projects. So I think it took about 2.5 to 3 years before we were like, it's ready. But even then, after that, leading up to the Kickstarter, it had a bunch of changes. Okay. So it was a solid 3-year development cycle. It will be, we should have it, I guess, manufactured. It should be all ready to go and out to backers no later than December, hopefully a little bit earlier.
Okay.
I feel like we're ahead of schedule, but Michael handles all of that. So what I feel means nothing. He is the final say on that one.
Alrighty. So that'll be that's it seems like a lot of games are coming out around holiday season, and then I don't know about you, but a lot of the games that I kickstarted back last year, I'm starting to enter the season into when a lot of those games are starting to get delivered to the backers. So I'm getting this
it's that time.
Influx of games that all these games here, and I gotta first of all figure out how to play them, and then get enough people around the table to get it played enough times so I could, do a review or whatever.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. I've had this dream of doing a review channel for so long, but I only play test games. Like if I play 200 games in a year, I probably don't play 200. I probably play 100 games in a year, but it's because I play 30 of them 12 times and they're all being play tested.
Right.
So it's like I have to make myself play like published games, and it's usually, and what's hilarious is it's usually a game that I play tested.
So it's like, okay, yeah, that mechanism right there, that was my idea. Yeah.
It's usually just because I just want to see how it looks after production, because I play tested it at Unpub or and I'm like, ooh, I really want to know, like, how did it come out?
Yeah. That must be a cool thing to be able to see. Just number one, a creation or just an idea that you have, and then just have it go from different phases of, physical form and how it kind of grows and morphs and evolves, and what the final results are.
Yeah, I think that's a good chunk of why I do it at all, is just that feeling of taking an idea and taking it all the way through a process, whether it's whether it's making a game or, like you said, music, or I even consider the podcast, when you organizing a podcast and getting somebody together and starting a conversation and editing it down and combining it with another conversation. That's just as much a creative process to me as making a game. Maybe on a smaller or maybe on a shorter time frame.
Yeah.
But it's all a very creative and very rewarding thing to finish it and complete it and to give it to the world.
Yeah. And it's neat because I think one episode just recently I read an email I got from I forget her name off the top of my head, but she said she was from the Netherlands, and saying how much she enjoyed my videos on the board game breakfast, and then actually, today at the time that we're recording this, it's Monday, and another video dropped on the Dice Tower website. So I'm going through the different comments and stuff like that of all the people commenting on the particular video, and it's just to actually get some feedback of people who are seeing or hearing what you're doing, and saying what they like, or what if it's constructive criticism, what they don't like, and how you can improve. So.
Yeah, it's really weird, because I worked on Flip and Fine's Diner for so long that I didn't have a new game that I was really playtesting. I was confident in Flip and Fine's Diner and the way that people would react to it. I knew where the problems were, so I knew when I was going to see disappointment. I was still working on how to fix that. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. But there was no. But there was no fear involved. And I just recently started working on a couple new projects because I'm done with Flip and Finds. It's like I had to let go. So now I'm working on some new stuff. And I got it to the table last Tuesday, and I started sweating. I felt like I was at the top of a hill about to go down a hill. You know what I mean? It was like, it was the first time it was in front of somebody, and I realized I was afraid.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of exhilarating. You know what I mean? Like afterwards, we talked it through, and then afterwards, as I was driving home, I really was like, I stopped and thought, and I was like, man, that was actually pretty intense. Okay. To get that feedback, and I don't know, just to release this thing out into the wild, not sure of how someone was going to react to it. And I realized that's why I really, really like this.
Okay.
Why I really love the design process, because I am such an anxiety-stricken person, in general. And I feel like doing things like that kind of tempers it and helps me kind of, I don't know, deal with it and get past it.
Now, you talked a little bit about the game that you designed. So what, when you're not designing or reviewing, what kind of games do you like to play just for the sheer fun of things?
I started out when I was younger. I played a lot of chess, and I played in competitions a little bit. We have like the rec center competitions. I don't think it was like any kind of official competition. I honestly don't remember because, I was just having fun playing chess. And so I enjoy, I don't like playing longer games as much, but I do enjoy something with a good amount of strategy if the players at the table are right for it. But I can always sit down and just play Happy Salmon. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay with just having fun playing board games, like no seriousness to it at all, no depth, no strategy, just all luck and stupid. Like I am perfectly fine with that. But I am beginning to rediscover like deep strategy stuff a little bit more than I have been at first. Like Helios Expanse, we play tested. That's from Greenbrier Games. They just kickstarted it, I think, like a week or two after I kickstarted mine. And we were playtesting that, and I loved that. And I mean, it's an hour and a half. It's supposed to be like a quick 4X, a quick 4X space exploration. Really fun. And it's a really good introduction into what you would expect from a 4X. Because I play tested a couple 3-hour long 4X games, and it's basically that type of game without the story. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that brings you into the story. You're dropped immediately into space. You are immediately trying to explore these planets and fight the other people who are exploring the other planets.
Okay.
And that's it. It doesn't give you any depth about the planets. It doesn't give you any depth about your ships. It just gives you the mechanics of 4X, and it has some nice artwork, and it plays good, and it's got a fun little it was a programming mechanic to where we all kind of decide what we're going to do, and then we're flying around interacting, and it was fun. It was a really good experience.
That's neat.
So that really kind of woke me up to, I could probably sit here for 2 hours now. I guess for a while I just wasn't really ready to sit down for 2 hours and play a game, 2 or more, but I think I'm past that now.
For me, it's kind of interesting because it's like, you hear this joke of, start a gaming podcast or start a gaming video. They said, you get to play a lot of games. They said, it'll be a lot of fun. They said, and then it's like, you get to the point where it's like, a bit of a tangent. I used to have one of my hobbies was photography, so it's one of these things. It's like, well, you if you want to do fun work, you do something that you enjoy, and so I try to make a business out of my photography, and it got to the point where by the time I got home, I didn't even want to look at a camera.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, this job is ruining my love for the hobby, so I kind of stopped that. But I find that I really, even more now, I really cherish the times to be able to just sit down with a group of people and just play a game for the fun of it, and not have to play a game with another focus of, okay, I'm going to critique this, or I'm going to write a review, or I'm doing how to play or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm a general contractor, and that's my primary earning. That's how I live, and I've been doing roofing primarily for almost a decade now, and I ran my own company for a couple years, and we were doing good, But I honestly enjoy building and fixing things. You know what I mean? It's a really fun thing for me to hang out with 5 or 6 other people and put a house back together or to do a roof. I honestly enjoy it, but I only enjoy it without the pressure of the next job pressing up against me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Without the pressure of angry customers and, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I actually I shut down a successful company because I was just like, this is ruining the fun of working for me, because I enjoy, I enjoy that work, and it was destroying it for me. So I shut that down, and now I just do it pretty much by myself and with a couple of my friends whenever they show up, and I have a good time, and I still really make pretty much the same money, I don't have this economy that I have to support me more. And I think you have to find the way to make a living off of doing the thing you love without destroying your love of that thing. And that's something that you probably are going to get wrong the first time.
Definitely, yes. So, but
I don't think you can hole in that one very easily.
No, not very often. So it's that's one of those lucky few that will be able to pull that off on the first strike. So
yeah, or even the second, really.
Yeah. As we were gonna do a little bit of audio trickery on you guys to see if we could add this little segment onto what we recorded. What, 3 months ago or something like that?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think that might have been a month and a half, 2 months ago.
But as it is, we've actually, Gerald, you've upgraded a bit on your microphone, so you sound quite a bit different and actually better than you.
Yeah. Well, I had, it was funny because Calvin Keeney of Streamline Gaming, he's one of the members of the Ultimate Team Up Creator Space, and he listens. I do a weekly interview series into the Creator Space that he listens to, and he is big on audio quality. And he was like, dude, I'm going to send you a good microphone. He was like, you sound good. You talk great. Everything's good. But he's like, I'm going to send you a real microphone and you'll see the difference. And I was like, oh, wow, he's right. I was like, oh, the difference is massive.
Yeah. So actually, we're actually recording this. From the time you guys are listening to this out in this episode out in the interwebs, we recorded this last week. The amount of trickery and magic I would have to pull off and post to make this sound like we were all recorded this all in one fell swoop is just not worth the effort. Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we got Sherry back here just briefly because something has come up that you got something coming up here in the very near future that you want to chit chat about.
Definitely. Well, since we last spoke, I had already planned on being at Chicago Comic-Con because I'm pretty sure we talked about it. I've been working with Wizard World Comic-Con doing their tabletop area. And since we last spoke, we spontaneously combustible, me and Michael McFarlane and Todd Jacobison we decided that we're going to launch a Kickstarter to coincide with the next 3 weeks of continuous travel that I have. So it's going to be basically my second tour. We did a tour for the Flip and Finds Kickstarter we did back in April, and it was a lot of fun. But what we did then was 3 days. So this time around, it's going to be 3 weeks. We'll be going we'll be first headed out to Chicago Comic-Con on from the 23rd to the 26th of August. And then from there, me and my wife will drive to Seattle, where we're going to catch the tail end of PAX Dev. Okay. And then we'll be at PAX West for the entirety of the event. And that I believe it ends on the 4th of September. And then from there, we're going to go to we're going to stop at one or two stores that I love. I want to go make sure I stop at Mock's Boarding House in Seattle before we head down to Tulsa, Oklahoma for Wizard World Comic-Con there. So we'll be gone from the 22nd until September 10th, I believe. We should be getting home. So pretty exciting. And we're going to be the entire time. And it's funny because I forget the entire time we will be promoting our Kickstarter for Welterweights, which is launching August 20th, this Monday, which will be a day or two before you guys are listening to this. So we'll be live on Kickstarter when you hear this. But the game Welterweights was designed by Joshua Gardner, and the art was done by Abby Callie. And it is a 2-player boxing game that uses a programming mechanic to put you in the mind of a boxer as minute by minute they decide what moves they're going to do and what they're going to do in the ring, like how they're how they're going to fight.
Okay, like a dodge and weave and
exactly. Like you will be building your hand. You'll have a right hand deck and a left hand deck, and each round you'll build your hand of 4 cards and then program those 4 cards, and then each player will reveal simultaneously what they're doing, and it will be each round will be decided like that. Actually, each minute. It's the most confusing thing because when you're talking about a boxing game, when you say rounds, everybody thinks you're talking about like the rounds in the boxing match.
Yeah.
But I'm actually talking about
the rounds in the game.
The rounds in the game, which are actually a minute of each round in the boxing match.
Okay. All right.
And we tried so hard to come up with a better way to say that. But there's, if you're going to make a boxing simulation, you have to use the terminology. Unfortunately, there's some overlap there. We've been playtesting it now, I guess, for a year now. We've been playtesting it and refining it, and it's been pretty much ready to go for really since we launched Flip and Finds. We knew we were ready to go with Welterweights whenever we needed to after Flip and Finds. And originally, we wanted to put more time into pre-promotion, but with the tour and it being a small 2-player card game, we're really excited to be able to show it to people.
Okay. So if people are in those cities that you're going to be visiting, they go to the cons and check that game out, and you guys there at the cons.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you are in Chicago, please come to Comic-Con. We'll be doing tournaments for Galatoons. We'll be doing tournaments for Russian World Championship Russian Roulette from Alan Girding and the guys from Anthony Birch. It was published by Tuesday Night Games. Okay. But Anthony Birch was actually the designer, and we'll be doing tournaments for that, and we'll also be doing tournaments for Welterweights just to introduce people to the competitive nature of the game.
Now, I'm sure for people who like to sleeve their card games and stuff like that, how many cards are in a deck?
Total, I believe the total card count for the game is right under 80 cards, and that's for both players. But some of those cards are, we tried to keep everything cards. So the score counters, Michael McFarland did a fantastic job of designing a way for us to count the score using these 2 overlapping cards. And he really has fun solving those puzzles for us. Because we had a meeting and, we were like, oh man, how are we going to do that? And I just looked at Michael. I was like, you got that, right? And he's like, yeah, I can figure that one out.
Sure. It's like, even if you can't, just say that you can. Just
exactly.
Now, because that Kickstarter is going to go live, so by the time this episode drops, people will be able to go to that Kickstarter page. Go check that out. And if you are anywhere in the vicinity, or at least within a very good, manageable driving distance away from those cities, go to those cities and go check out the cons. And while you're there, look for Welterweights and go check that game out.
Yeah, I definitely would love to. Anybody who hears this, I would absolutely love to meet you. And come find me at PAX Prime if you're in Seattle as well, or in Tulsa, Oklahoma for Comic-Con if you're there. PAX Prime, I will be acting as an enforcer as I usually am. I work for the convention or as an enforcer, so I'll be there in that capacity, but I will also be spending most of my time that I'm not working either in the first look area, teaching or learning new games, which I'm super excited about, or in Olive 8, which is the hotel where they house a lot of the board game stuff at PAX Prime. So if you find yourself in the Olive 8 in the Playtest Northwest area, you'll probably find me as well. So just look for the black guy with the unkempt hair, who isn't Eric Lang.
Yes. And the white bald guy is not going to be there, so don't be looking for me. So.
Well, if they look for the white bald guy at PAX, I'm sure they'll find tons. So
it just won't be me because I'm sorry, I won't be able to make it to. Actually, I won't be able to make it to any of those cities. So,
oh yeah,
but definitely check out that game and say hi and tell Jerry that Mega Meeple sent you.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be a really fun fun little surprise to meet someone who's listened to me chatting away on the podcast. You can make sure to let me know how much you appreciate the new microphone.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Mega Meeple, and as many of you have listened over any course of time for the podcast, you know that we have game designers and publishers and stuff like that, but every once in a while we have another content creator as a guest on the show, and that is the case today. We have Cathy Ford of Our Turn Podcast. How you doing, Cathy?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. It's I gotta tell you, I've listened to the podcast quite a while, and your voice is, I mean, as the very first thing you hear when you listen to the podcast is your voice saying, "It's our turn," and just the way you say that just sets the mood and the tone of what people are going to hear, because it's like, hey, it's our turn, and it's like, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna talk about some cool things. We're gonna do some happy stuff, and just sit back and enjoy yourself. So, I mean that.
I'm so glad it comes across that way, because that's how it's intended.
Yeah, you have Our Turn Podcast, and you host a show with Sarah Reed, and is also actually a game designer. We'll talk about her game here in a little bit. But you guys are also on the Dice Tower Network. So how long,
yes, we are.
How long ago did that happen?
A year ago in February.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. We reached out to Tom Vassell, I think about episode number 8, and said, what do we need to do in order to join the network? And he told us we had to have at least 10 episodes, and we had to be family friendly. And I think we actually waited until about episode 18 or 19 before we got back to him and said, okay, can we join now? Can we join now? And he came back to us and asked us, a couple months later, and asked us if we were still interested. And we said, yes, absolutely. And we were inducted with the Family Gamers and Board Game Blitz.
But that if you haven't already out there, check out our Turn Podcast. Now, your tagline is, as it is right now, it's women on gaming for everyone. But that recently changed to that not too long ago, right?
Right. At the beginning of the year, we've had a few male contributors to our show. It was called Women on Gaming, and it's a podcast by women for everyone. But then we had male contributors, and we also had a situation where Sarah was needing to step back a little bit in her hosting duties, just because of, and she and her husband are game designers, so they were having to do, go to shows and things like that, and so they were just very busy as well. And so then I didn't want to just be on the show talking to myself, basically, but I also wanted to have men guest host the show. If they wanted to, especially the ones who had been contributing to the show, Frank and Jesse and my husband, Mark. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to change it to Our Turn, Gaming for Everyone. And so that's how that line has changed a little bit. We're still focused on highlighting women game designers and content creators, and talking about the women's experience, but we also want to include people from the LGBTQ community, people who are people of color, because their experience is a little different from the majority of gamers. We put out a survey last year in December, locally here mostly, and we were asking, is there any interest in another game convention here in Sacramento? There are currently 2 kind of small ones, and we were looking at the idea of maybe hosting one ourselves, but we wanted to find out if there was any interest in that. And in the course of that survey, we also asked for demographic information, and we found that of all the responses we got, about 78% were from men, and about 75% were white men. And so we saw that, there's still a lot of work to do to even out that number. Nothing wrong with white men gamers, but we want to have more women involved. We want to have more people of color involved. We want to have more people from the LGBTQ community involved. And so we're kind of looking at, okay, how can we approach that here locally and get those numbers to even out a little bit more?
Was there enough interest to have the convention there, or?
We're actually decided to take a little bit of a different approach. As you know, our sign off on our show is that was our turn, now it's yours. So we're putting together a nonprofit organization called Your Turn Events, and it's of course going to be connected with the podcast. And we're looking at putting on small events around Sacramento County to start with, where we're hosting like a game night at a pizza parlor or a library community room, and then going, before the event, going around the neighborhood, handing out flyers or door hangers or something. We haven't worked out all the issues yet. Inviting people to come to that location to play board games, and different themed events. Like something like not your dad's Monopoly, kind of thing, or just maybe an evening of space games or something like that. I don't know. We're still working on the details. But the idea is to, go into neighborhoods that are predominantly Asian or predominantly African American or predominantly LGBTQ, which there are those types of neighborhoods here in Sacramento, and invite them to come to the library or come to the pizza parlor or wherever we're going to hold it and play these games you've probably never heard of. Mm-hmm. They're not the games that you're going to find in stores like Walmart and Target. They're the hobby games that gamers love.
Right. Something similar here called Potions and Pixels, and it's like almost like a monthly thing, and it's they meet at different restaurants. It's like particularly if the restaurant has a lot of room, or maybe like a dedicated room that people could go to and just have a bunch of hobby and modern board games to open up to people.
Yeah, we have some meetup groups here that also meet in restaurants, and then on the weekends they'll meet a lot of times in the library community rooms. And it's neat because in Sacramento, almost all the libraries are built with community rooms with external entrances that are separate from the entrance to the library. And they also have external entrances to the restrooms. So when the library closes, we can stay and play and still have access to use the restrooms when we need to. And some of them have a little kitchenette where we can put some sodas in the fridge and have our bring in our own meals or whatever. And we can stay and play until we're ready to leave. And we've left the library at 2:00 in the morning after playing a game of Yedo or something like that. And it's a lot of fun. I'm doing that tomorrow, going to a library game day. And the idea behind your turn is to, generate interest in populations that don't attend these meetups, and then not only have them attend our events, but also go to these meetups as well, where they can find out about even more games.
Yeah. Now, I want to touch base on Sarah. She has a game that her and her husband designed called Project Dreamscape.
Yes.
And we'll put a link in the show notes here, but it is currently available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and she's got another one coming out soon that had a successful Kickstarter called Oaxaca.
Oaxaca, okay.
Oaxaca is it's a village in Mexico. It might also be a state in Mexico. I don't remember. But I haven't had a chance to play that one yet, but I'm looking forward to getting my copy when it comes out.
Okay. Now Sarah wasn't able to be with us during the recording of this, but from what I was able to tell on the at least on Board Game Geek, is that there's some scientists that invented a machine that could tap into a person's dreams and make them a reality.
Right. That's Project Dreamscape. Yeah. And it's a set collection game. So you're purchasing cards. The game is interesting because the cards in the game serve a dual purpose. One side, it has two different dream powers. And then the other side has a coin on it with a Z on it. And you can either use the card from your hand as use one of the player powers and put it into your tableau as part of a chain of symbols, or you can use the Z side to help you buy cards, which can cost up to, if I remember, 4 or 5 coins, 4 or 5 of these Z coins, depending on where it is in the market. And then on each card, there are these little symbols, and you're trying to chain those together. And the longer a chain you have in your tableau, the more points it's worth. So you may have a card that you use one of the powers, but you're using the symbol that's on the other power. Each power has its own symbol on it. Okay. It's a fun game. It's a thinky filler game. And I love introducing non-gamers to it. Gamers have a great time with it too, but it's one of my go-tos for introducing non-gamers to different types of games with different mechanics.
Okay, cool. Cathy, from your perspective and just your experience and the experiences of people that you've talked to, and the women in your social circles, what challenges or insights can you give us on women have faced in the gaming community? As far as
I know, for me personally, I've been really lucky in that I have a wonderful circle of friends that are very inclusive and very welcoming. But that doesn't mean I haven't encountered issues along the way. I walked into a game store one time here locally, and the room was full. The store was full of white male gamers playing Magic, which is not unusual. I mean, a lot of game stores are like that. But they all looked at me when I walked in the store, and it wasn't a comfortable feeling. It was more like, wait a minute, what's she doing here? Which I thought was kind of odd because there was a young lady behind the counter who worked there. But it was clear that it was unusual for women to walk into the store and want anything. I've been asked, can I help you find something? And, which is not a bad thing, but then it's followed up by, are you looking for something for your boyfriend or for your husband? No, I'm looking for something for myself. Do you have this game? Do you have this game? Do you have this game? And then even though I know what I'm after, they proceed to tell me about, the mechanics and how it's different from maybe a mass market game. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. I realize that. I sat down and played a game. I played Cosmic Encounter with a couple of men one time. It was just me and two other guys. And these were men that I knew. But at one point, we kind of got into a standoff where two of us were going back and forth, and the other guy was just kind of sitting there, keeping either of us from winning. And finally, what the other guy I was in the standoff with decided, okay, enough's enough. And so he made a move and I countered it and I won. And the third guy piped up with, you couldn't win without help from a man. Oh. And it was like, well, considering I'm playing two men and we were in a complete standoff, we basically battled to a draw. It was not a comfortable feeling for me when he said that, and it made it a not fun memory. Those kinds of things are what I have encountered. I know that women will often pull out a game and start to play and realize there are no women characters. Or if there are women characters in the game, they are drawn in such a way that they're very scantily clad, which makes women feel uncomfortable in a lot of cases.
They all look like a bunch of Princess Leia and Jabba the Hutt's lair.
Right. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had 2 episodes in our podcast called "Just Say No to Chainmail Bikinis," and one was the initial, okay, let's introduce this topic, and it was really the first topic that we tried to tackle about how women encounter this. And then we revisited it 20 or 30 episodes later. And it's just very uncomfortable. Also, too, there had been a game that came out, and I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but all of the characters were women. And there was a big frou-frou on Amazon in the reviews about how I'm not going to buy this because my boys couldn't play it. And absolutely, your boys could play it. They would be playing a female character. How many times have women sat down to a game and their only option was to play a male character? But that's not apparently a problem.
It's similar to when they remade Ghostbusters with the Ghostbusters were all women. Mm-hmm. People were just like lambasting that thing with that. Even before the movie was released, they were saying, "Oh, it's not going to be good," or "I'm not going to see." It's a remake of the original, but they don't have to do things
the exact same way.
Spot by spot.
Now, I have a game that is another game that all the characters in it are female. It's called Monarch. The premise of the game is that the Queen Regnant is trying to figure out which of her daughters is going to succeed her. And so it's your job as princesses of the realm to show your mother that you can manage the kingdom. And I bought the game based on that premise. I hadn't never played it, and sat down with my husband and a couple of friends of ours, and we all played, and the guys had just as much fun being princesses as the girls did. And it's a great game. It's a great game.
I've seen too, where even in role playing games, there's been many times where the guys have played female characters and vice versa.
And I'm game mastering a Firefly game right now. Anybody who listens to the show knows my favorite game on earth is Firefly, the board game. Yeah. Well, I also game master Firefly, the role-playing game. And one of our players is a gentleman named Mark. Hi, Mark. Not my husband. And he's playing a character named Ruth, who is a shepherd, which throws people off every now and then because they'll refer to his character as him. And he pipes up and goes, "No, it's her."
Yeah, and going back to what you were talking about with going into the game store, and it's like, it reminds me of a woman going to a mechanic.
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
where it's assumed that we don't know what we're anything about the topic.
Yeah.
And
or they're shocked that it was like, oh, this woman knows how to change her oil or something. It's like
right. Or a car dealership is another place too that women run into challenges. I had a friend who took her adult son with her to the car lot because she wanted his opinion, because it was her and him. I mean, that was her family. And so she wanted a family member there to give her opinion. And she said that the car salesman would only talk to her son. Even though they were there to buy her a car, he would only talk to her son. Even when she asked questions, he would answer them back to her son, not to her. And, we run into the same issue in the game store. If a woman walks into a game store and doesn't know anything about gaming, then that's a good chance to educate her. But just like you would educate a man who walked in that didn't know anything about gaming. But I would encourage game store employees not to assume that when a woman walks into a game store, she doesn't know anything.
Do you think that the gaming community, or at least the perception that they have, would ever get to the point where it's like, okay, this person is a game designer, and they just leave it at that the merit of what they do is from their hard work and creativity and of being a game designer, versus trying to have to add that little thing. Oh, she's a girl, she's a woman too.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're working for. That was part of the impetus behind starting Our Turn, was that, yes, we were seeing women sprinkled here and there on different podcasts, but none of them was leading the podcast. It wasn't, quote, their show. Mm-hmm. They were part of the show, but they weren't the leader of the show. They weren't managing the show and running the show. And so that's what prompted me to reach out to my friends and say, hey, anybody want to do a podcast with me? And I only reached out to my women friends. Mm-hmm. And I had 5 women step up and say, yeah, absolutely, we'd want to help you with this. And now it's, me and Sarah are the original 2. The others have had things happen in their life and that's taken them away. One of the people that was involved was my niece, Nicole. She's off at college right now being a 21-year-old college student, which is an experience I absolutely want her to concentrate on having. A couple of our other hosts, Maida and Melissa, simultaneously had huge opportunities come up in their careers for them. And so they stepped away from the show to deal with that. And they're absolutely welcome back anytime they want to come back. And then we also had Ella, who was she was didn't want to be on the show. She wanted to help with the show. Uh-huh. And so she was our graphic designer and our editor. She taught me a ton of stuff about editing audio. And she worked on our show for quite a while. And then she had some life circumstances come up and needed to step away from the show. So, but we've had other women join the show as recurring guest hosts. We have Annette Villa from Netter's Plays on YouTube. She comes on the show frequently. Kathleen Mercury from Games in Schools and Libraries podcast has been a recent addition. And Katie from Katie's Game Corner, Jesse Metcalf to talk about games with dice. Okay. So we're bringing in people all the time. I've had Mandy Hutchison and Suzanne Sheldon on the show from the Dice Tower. And, we are happy to have anybody on the show who wants to come on. And now that we've kind of changed our focus a little bit to gaming for everyone, we're getting less resistance from guys to come on the show, because when we've invited people to come on the show in the past, the response has been, well, I'm not a woman. Well, that doesn't matter. It's okay. You can come on. But since we changed it to gaming for everyone, that has been less of an issue. There was one YouTube channel called Girls Game Shelf, and that's kind of what sparked the idea. And then, so I got my group together and we started putting the show together, and we set our launch date for June, I think it was June 13th of 2016. And we launched and, had a great reception and everything. And then we found out that 2 weeks earlier, Board Game Blitz had launched, which that show is also hosted by all women. And, we were absolutely thrilled. We were a little disappointed we weren't first, but we were absolutely thrilled that, hey, there are two podcasts out there now that have all women crews, and both shows have prospered, and we've become friends with the ladies from Board Game Blitz, and have met them in person, and they're wonderful people, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do some collaborations in the future. I need to reach out to them and ask them about it.
That's cool that more podcasts or at least shows and podcasts are being hosted and produced by women. I don't listen to radio very much, hardly at all nowadays, but I remember a number of years ago where morning rush hour traffic radio, there usually if there was a woman on the radio, it was like the giggly co-host that would laugh at the male host's jokes or stupid comments.
Or they were relegated to doing weather and traffic.
Yeah. Now I'm single. I'm retired, so finding time to game is relatively easy. It's like, okay, contact a bunch of people. Hey, you want to get together a game? Okay, yeah, and just do it. But with married couples, how do you and Mark? Do you have to schedule times, or is it more impromptu, or how do you deal with the?
We have the added bonus of we don't have any kids. We have 2 dogs, but we don't have any kids, and so we don't have kids' activities to deal with, or having to chase after, young kids. I'm happy to do that with my nieces and nephews, but, we don't have them here. And so we can either sit down and watch TV in the evening, which we do a lot, or we can sit down and play a game, or he can go play a computer game on his computer and I can go do something on my computer. Because he really enjoys World of Warcraft, and I've tried it, and it's just not my thing. But a lot of times I'll say, hey, let's go play a game. And sometimes he picks, and sometimes I pick, and sometimes we just, pull out Terraforming Mars because we both know how to play it, and we both enjoy it. And it's just kind of become our go-to game when we don't know what else we want to play. When we're sitting there going, what do you want to play? I don't know. What do you want to play? I don't know. What do you want to play?
It's like picking a restaurant. Where do you want to?
Exactly.
Where do you want to eat? I don't know. Where you
exactly. And so, when we get into that conversation, I just reach up and pull out Terraforming Mars, and we're like, okay, yeah, this works. But like the other night, I said, we were starting that little back and forth, and He goes, I don't know, but let's not play Terraforming Mars. I said, okay. And so I was looking at the shelf and I said, Seven Wonders Duel? He goes, there we go. Seven Wonders is a game that we enjoy, but again, it doesn't play 2-player very well. It does have a 2-player variant, but it's okay. But yeah, when we find a game that plays 2-player well, whether it's cooperative or competitive, yeah, we play the heck out of it.
But I observe a bit more with my roommate and his girlfriend when they play cooperative games. It's just a different it's a different side of them when they play competitive.
Oh, sure.
And even when it's like we were playing one game where it's like I think what it boiled down to was the three of us. You know, she was going to lose, and she knew she was going to lose, but she was fine with that as long as I beat Matt. She just didn't want Matt to win the game. And it's like, okay, well, I'm good for that, you know. So we'll concede with that. It's really neat that both people are involved in gaming. I remember back. Granted, I had a whole different circle of friends back then. But if anybody was into gaming, it was usually the guy, and it was the woman that either not so much didn't know anything but didn't want to know. It was one of those things. It was like, yeah, you keep that, you know, you don't bring that into our house. You know, we'll give you a room or a corner in the garage or something like that, and you hang out with your guys there, but you don't bring that into the rest of the house. And now with the couples that I know now, it's an equal thing. Both of them are into gaming, and a lot of times it's, you know, each one has their own dedicated gaming shelf. As far as, you know, one could be really like one game and one style of game, and the other one like another type of game, and it's like it's none of this.
I think that's more a function of personality, though, rather than gender. You know, like I said, I don't like World of Warcraft. I don't object to Mark playing World of Warcraft so long as he doesn't do it to the exclusion of all else, which has been a problem in the past, distant past, but it has been a problem. Obviously, we worked through it. But I think a lot of the perception that women have of gaming is war games. And I can't, of course, speak for all women, but war games are just, you know, not always interesting, an interesting topic. Now, there are some war games that I really enjoy, but there's others that, I'm not really interested in. We own a copy of Axis and Allies, and I'm not interested really in playing that, but I enjoy Twilight Struggle. We also have a copy of a game that I first learned called when I first learned it was called Shogun. Now it's called Ikuza, and the copy we have is called Samurai Swords, and that is a war game in feudal Japan. Now that one does interest me. It depends, I think, on the topic. And now that there are so many hobby board games being developed with so many different themes, that I think it's going to be a lot easier to pull people in. It's, you know, not all these games are high finance like Monopoly, or war games like Axis and Allies and Ogre, which are great games, but there are so many different other topics. I mean, Sushi Go is about ordering sushi. Who'd have thunk there'd ever be a game about ordering sushi? But it's a good game. Forbidden Island, you're on an island that's sinking into the sea, and you're trying to recover artifacts. So it's sort of an archaeology game. Just more and more and more themes are coming out every year. Kickstarter has been wonderful for the board game industry in allowing so many new themes to come to light. We're just absolutely living in a wonderful time for board games right now. And so I think if you are a guy and you want to get your lady into gaming, figure out what topic interests her, trust me, there's a game for it. Look at your significant other's career. There's probably a board game related to that career. Yeah. Start there. Go after what interests them, rather than trying to introduce them to things that are solely your interest. Like I said, Mark loves World of Warcraft. He's tried to get me into it. We even bought me a computer that could handle playing World of Warcraft. And I played it, and I'm just like, yeah, no, just it isn't grabbing me. Right. And he's like, all right. And so now he goes off and plays it with, his guild friends, and I go and do my own thing. But we always come back together and play board games or role-playing games or whatever.
When it all comes down to is just being social and making those memories with friends, family. You can only experience so much on a video game. I think it's cool that you could play a game with someone halfway across the planet. But there's something unique and special about sitting around the gaming table and face to face, and just I don't remember very much specific games or specific instances or scenarios that played out, but I definitely remember the fun that we had. I've heard people say, it's like you'll never remember a conversation that you had with someone, but you'll definitely remember how that conversation made you feel, or how that person made you feel.
Exactly. Yeah. I have great memories of playing board games with my family growing up, and now they kind of look at me funny, like, why are you bringing board games to a family event? And I'm like, well, where else should I play them if not with the people I grew up playing them with? But I think what throws them off is that I'm not bringing Monopoly or Sorry or Parcheesi or Trouble or, some of those mass market games that we had when I was a kid. But I say, well, if you like this game, then you'll like this game. You were great at playing Monopoly. Here, let me teach you Power Grid. Once they get past that, oh wow, this is different, they have a good time. I went to go visit my grandmother, she just turned 98. She still lives on her own, and just renewed her driver's license for another 5 years, and so she'll be 103 when it expires. And I take games to play with her all the time. I've taught her Quirkle, I've taught her Flux, I've taught her Suro. Yeah, and every time I go, I try to bring some games, and she gives me the old song and dance of, oh, I'm too old to learn anything new, and then she learns the game and beats me, and and I'm having a great time with my grandmother. I do need to get her to teach me Pinochle, because that's been a game that she's played her entire life, and I have never sat down and played Pinochle with her, but yeah, so great memories, learning to play all these games, and then now I'm teaching my family games too.
Well, finally, before we close, if people want to find out more about you or Our Turn podcast or anything like that, where could they go?
Well, we have our website, which is ourturnpodcast.com. And I run the Our Turn Podcast Twitter handle, which is @OurTurnPodcast. Sarah Reed manages our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/OurTurnPodcast. We do have an Instagram account, but nobody manages it right now, so there's not much happening over there. We also have a guild on Board Game Geek, which is guild number 2600. If you go into their search engine and there's a little drop down where it says board game, you can choose guild and then just type in 2600 and it should take you there. And we have some great discussions over there. We try to be wherever people are the most. We have great discussions on Facebook. I have wonderful discussions on Twitter, and we have a whole separate group of people that participate in discussions on Board Game Geek, and it's all wonderful and it's all fun, and everybody is welcome.
Well, Cathy, thank you so much for taking your lunch hour or something.
Well, I have a pretty flexible schedule, so yeah, I was able to just step away from it and come back and come on and do this. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it very much. But now we have like a little game that we like to play with all of our guests. Basically, I'll rattle off a choice of two things, and you tell me which one you like better or prefer over the other.
Okay.
All right. First off, Android or Apple?
Android.
All right. Oreos or Chips Ahoy?
Chips Ahoy, unless it's lemon Oreos.
Ah, okay. Dine in or take out?
Dine in.
Drawings or paintings?
Paintings.
Hey, last one is ice cream or yogurt?
Ice cream.
Okay, there we go.
Especially if caramel is involved.
Alrighty, Cathy. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Appreciate you being a guest on the show. Take a listen to Our Turn podcast, and no, you don't have to be a woman to listen. Anybody and everybody could get something out of listening to this podcast. So if you haven't already, go check them out. They're on a Dice Tower network. So, Cathy, thanks again.
Oh, thank you. I've had a great time.
Same here. You take care now.
You too.
Alrighty then. Thank you so much for downloading and listening. Come back next week as my special guest co-host is Brent McLennan. And my guest is a guy by the name of Daryl Durston. Now, a while back, there was a Geek and Sundry article about a physical ed teacher who used board games as part of his PE classes. It's pretty inventive how he did that. But you'll have to come back next week to hear how he did that. It's pretty cool. So again, if you enjoy the show and you want to support us, go to either our Pod Pledge or Patreon page. And if you're not able to do that, because I know, hey, things are tight. $1 could make the difference between whether you get that gallon of milk or not. Don't support the show financially if it's gonna put you in a bind. Like I said earlier, there are other ways, free ways, that don't cost any money at all, and that's just by following me on Facebook, Twitter, retweet, share, like, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever, and just share the word. Tell all your friends about the show. Word of mouth goes a long way. But regardless, your listenership and loyalty and support are always appreciated, regardless of what form it is. So, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will join me next week. Until then, we'll see you at the gaming table.
I had a chat. Jamie is wonderful to talk to. He's like, I had a chat with him. We did a little tour for Flip and Fine's Diner, and I went around to a couple different states and did a couple live interviews on Facebook. They were all horrible quality. The video was crap. The bandwidth was horrible. Everything was bad. The sound was horrible. But the one that we did with Jamie came out halfway decent, and he was fantastic to talk to. It was amazing because he's just like, yeah, come on by. It was just great.
Yeah,
it's like you almost expect, because I don't know, he kind of feels like a celebrity in the board game industry.
Oh yeah.
So it feels like at first they might be inaccessible, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to talk to him, but I guess, no matter how amazing and popular we feel like these guys are, they still feel like everybody still feels like they're just a part of the group. And that's really cool, I always think.
But I do get teased about how often I mention Firefly. My husband, who does the editing for our podcast now, he was doing a thing at the end of our show there for a while where he would say, today's Firefly count is 7. He would count the number of times that anybody mentioned Firefly in the episode, and then he would, put it at the end. And then at one point he did there's been a disruption in the space-time continuum. The Firefly count today is 0.